You know that feeling when you first wake up and like before your feet even hit the floor, you just feel utterly exhausted.
Oh, yeah. Completely drained.
Right. And I mean, not just physically tired from a bad night's sleep, but deeply mentally overwhelmed. It's almost as if you're instantly trapped in this battle inside your own mind.
Like you're fighting off a dozen invisible threats.
Exactly. Before the day has even officially started.
It is, frankly, an incredibly heavy way to begin a morning, and yet um, it's this physiological state that millions of people just wake up in every single day.
Yeah, which is wild to think about.
Right, it's that sense of dread or, that free-floating anxiety sitting right on your chest the moment your eyes open, and that really sets a tone that can derail, well, basically everything that follows.
Which is exactly why we are tackling this today. So, the mission for this deep dive is to explore some truly fascinating source material. We're looking at this incredible Arabic text we've had translated and analyzed for today's discussion.
And the insights in it are they're really profound.
They really are.
Hmm.
We are going to extract these science-backed lifestyle changes, the cognitive exercises, and, the really specific daily habits that actively reduce anxiety and improve your mood.
Because that's the goal.
Right. And the core of our mission today is focusing on how to achieve this naturally for you, the listener, without relying solely on medication as the first and, only line of defense.
Yeah, and the foundation of this entire translated text really rests on this crucial paradigm shift regarding how we view mental health.
A shift that I think is long overdue, honestly.
Oh, absolutely, because it is remarkably easy in our modern culture to view anxiety and depression as personal failures.
Or fundamental flaws in our character.
Exactly. But the research establishes a very clear biological distinction right from the start, and that is anxiety and depression are not signs of weakness. They are simply signals.
Signals, I love that.
Right, they are acute alerts from your brain and your body that something within your internal ecosystem desperately needs attention.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because that simple reframing completely changes the relationship you have with your own mind. It's like the check engine light in your car.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Like when that little amber light flicks on, it's not a sign that your vehicle is worthless.
No.
Or that you're, inherently a terrible driver. It's just a mechanical signal to look under the hood. It's raw data.
But we so often judge that data instead of actually analyzing it. I mean, we feel the anxiety physically manifesting, and the immediate thought is just, I am broken.
Yeah, something is fundamentally wrong with me.
Right. And the research is urging you to feel that anxiety, recognize the physical sensation, and instead think, my body is trying to communicate a biological need.
So the anxiety isn't the enemy.
Exactly. It is the messenger.
Okay, so if the check engine light is blinking and we're finally, looking under the hood, we have to start by examining the raw fuel and the basic operating systems running the engine.
Because you cannot simply outthink a body that is actively locked in a panic state.
Yeah, it would be like trying to rewrite the operating software on your laptop while the motherboard is literally melting down on your desk.
That is exactly it. That software is going to keep crashing until we manually override the nervous system's threat detection.
Because the hardware is on fire.
Right. When you're under constant chronic stress, your brain gets locked into what we call survival mode.
And what does that actually look like, biologically speaking?
Well, biologically speaking, the amygdala, which is basically the brain's alarm bell, it hijacks your prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the logical, problem-solving part of your brain.
So the alarm system takes over the control room.
Exactly. And in that hijacked state, the brain is prioritizing immediate life or death physical threats over logic. Your heart rate elevates, your breathing becomes incredibly shallow.
And your thoughts inherently skew negative, right? Because your brain is just rapidly scanning the environment for danger.
Yes. And this is where the modern world clashes with our evolutionary biology. In that survival state, your brain reacts to a mundane, overdue email the exact same way it would react to a physical predator in the wild.
Oh, wow. So a work deadline triggers the same response as a literal tiger.
Right. Your nervous system does not know the difference between a looming deadline and a looming tiger. It just knows it needs to mobilize for a threat.
Which brings us to the manual override. I mean, if the brain is screaming about a tiger that doesn't actually exist, how do we shut off the alarm?
Well, the source outlines very specific physical interventions to short-circuit this biological loop. The most immediate is a regulated breathing technique.
Okay, lay it on us.
So you inhale slowly for 4 seconds, you hold that breath for a brief pause, and then And this is the crucial part. You exhale very slowly for an even longer count, like 6 or 8 seconds.
We hear about deep breathing constantly. It sounds almost, I don't know, aggressively basic.
It does sound basic, I know.
But what is the actual mechanical gear turning when we extend that exhale? Why does that matter?
Mechanically, it is profound. When you control your breathing with a prolonged, slow exhale,
Mm-hmm.
you are actively engaging your diaphragm.
Okay.
And that directly stimulates the vagus nerve. That nerve is basically the main communication highway to your parasympathetic nervous system.
The rest and digest system.
Exactly. So you are literally sending a physiological message up the vagus nerve to the brain that says, you are safe.
Oh, because a body running from a genuine physical predator simply cannot pause to breathe out slowly for 6 seconds.
Precisely. By forcing the body to perform that action, the brain receives undeniable biological proof that the threat is past.
Wow. So you are reverse engineering calmness.
Yes. You use the body's hardware to force the software to update its status. And the text connects this directly to the environmental fuel we're giving the body to.
Right, the raw materials.
The foundational fuel is paramount. The text emphasizes prioritizing quality sleep, maintaining adequate hydration, eating balanced meals, and, crucially, drastically reducing excessive caffeine and highly processed foods.
Okay, let me push back on this for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
Because we all know we're supposed to drink water and get 8 hours of sleep. I mean, it's the oldest cliche in the wellness book.
Fair point.
If I am in a full-blown panic over a massive life problem, let's say I'm facing a devastating career setback or a really messy divorce, simply drinking a glass of water and going to bed feels like tossing a thimble of water onto a raging forest fire.
It really does feel that way.
Right. Like, does this actually intervene in survival mode when the external problem is very real and massive?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it makes perfect sense. It's a vital question. The breathing and the hydration are absolutely not going to magically rewrite your resume or repair your marriage.
Right. The divorce is still happening.
Exactly. What the research reveals is the underlying neurology of how poor habits amplify those genuine problems. For example, when you are dehydrated, your blood volume actually drops.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that forces your heart to work much harder to pump oxygenated blood.
Oh, so a beating, racing heart is immediately interpreted by the brain as stress.
Exactly. The brain registers that elevated heart rate and physiological strain, and it assumes you are under an environmental threat,
Add in a nervous system jacked up on excessive caffeine.
which mimics the chemical effects of adrenaline, by the way.
Right, and a brain deprived of sleep, leaving the amygdala highly reactive. Now, that massive life problem isn't just stressful. Your body is reacting to it as if it's immediately lethal,
The physiological state acts like a massive amplifier for the anxiety.
turning the volume up to 11.
Exactly.
Right.
Deep breathing, the proper hydration, the sleep, they don't make the divorce or the job loss disappear, but they physically reset your biological baseline.
They turn off the blaring alarm bells.
Right. They quiet the nervous system so that the room stops spinning. And your logical strategizing brain, the prefrontal cortex, can actually come back online to figure out how to deal with the external crisis.
Okay, so we put out the immediate fire in the nervous system, but if the baseline neurochemistry is still completely dysregulated, that fire is just going to reignite the second we open an email tomorrow.
Yes, the loop will just restart.
So how do we actually change the chemical baseline so the brain stops hunting for threats in the first place?
This is where the profound power of physical movement comes in. The text makes it very clear that your physical body heavily dictates the state of your mind.
And we can look at evolutionary biology for that too, right?
Absolutely. Historically, stress meant a physical threat, which required a massive expenditure of physical energy to escape.
You ran, you survived.
Right, and that physical exertion signaled to the body that the stress cycle was complete.
But today, the stress is completely sedentary. Like, we sit at a desk, we get stressed by an email, our cortisol spikes, and then we just keep sitting there.
The chemical loop never closes. The cortisol just pools in your system. Regular movement provides that necessary physical release.
So we literally have to burn it off.
Exactly. But it does more than just clear out stress hormones. Movement prompts the brain to release a whole cascade of restorative chemicals.
Like what?
We're talking about endorphins for pain relief and mood elevation, dopamine for motivation, and critically, BDNF.
Right, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's essentially fertilizer for the brain, isn't it?
It really is. It promotes neuroplasticity, helping the brain build new, healthier neural pathways. It literally helps repair the structural toll that chronic anxiety takes on the brain.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because reading the source text, it makes a really surprising point about the kind of movement you need.
Yes, this is a fascinating distinction that goes against a lot of modern fitness culture. The text states you do not need extreme, punishing workouts to trigger this chemical cascade.
Which is such a relief, because I think when a lot of people hear exercise for mental health, they envision forcing themselves to run a marathon or spending 2 hours dripping sweat in some high-intensity boot camp.
And if you're already waking up exhausted and overwhelmed, that just sounds like another towering, impossible task on the to-do list.
It sounds like torture.
Right. But when it comes to optimizing the brain's neurochemistry, the research definitively states that consistency matters far more than intensity.
Wow.
A brisk 20-minute walk every single day will do infinitely more for your emotional baseline than one grueling, exhausting workout once a week that just spikes your physical stress.
It's like a daily, steady, intravenous drip of natural medicine.
I love that analogy. Yes.
Yeah.
You aren't going to the pharmacy. You're generating these neurochemicals internally through the simple mechanics of walking.
Because the goal isn't to break the body down. The goal is to consistently signal to the brain that the body is moving forward safely.
Which releases the balancing chemicals. It lowers the barrier to entry entirely.
Okay, so let's map where we are for a second.
Let's do it.
The hardware is stabilized. You're hydrated, you're breathing deeply, and you're using a daily walk to flush out cortisol and generate a steady drip of dopamine and BDNF.
The body is calm.
Exactly. Now, we finally have the mental clarity to tackle the actual software generating the anxiety, the thoughts themselves.
And this is frequently the most challenging barrier. The text points out that one of the absolute most potent generators of anxiety is our default tendency to believe every single thought that surfaces in our minds.
Oh man, here's where I always get stuck. Because when I am in a dark place, my default anxious thought doesn't feel like a passing suggestion I can just wave away.
Right, it feels completely real.
It feels like an undeniable objective reality. It feels like a slammed door. How do you pry that door open when your own brain is screaming at you that everything is awful?
They feel like absolute truth because, as we discussed earlier, they're accompanied by that heavy physiological stress response. Your heart is pounding, so your brain says, this thought must be true.
The body is backing up the lie.
Exactly. But the source provides a cognitive anchor to disrupt this. It's a simple mantra. A negative thought is not always a fact. It is just a thought.
I think of the anxious brain almost like a predictive text algorithm on a smartphone.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Like, it has learned over years of stress to autocomplete every difficult situation with a catastrophic outcome. You type in, I have a big presentation, and the brain instantly autocompletes with, and I'm going to fail and lose my job.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. The exercise the text prescribes is designed to consciously train that predictive algorithm.
To change the autocomplete.
Right. When a challenge arises, the default anxious thought is almost always a definitive shutting down statement. Something like, I can't handle this.
The absolute finality of it, it's so heavy.
To disrupt the algorithm, you have to catch that definitive thought, recognize it as an anxious signal rather than an undeniable fact, and actively, manually type a new sentence.
Give me an example from the text.
So instead of the default, I can't handle this, you consciously reframe the dialogue to, this is incredibly difficult, but I can take one step at a time.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Are we just trying to trick ourselves with toxic positivity here? Because I have to ask the skeptical question.
It's an important question to ask.
If my life is genuinely falling apart, forcing myself to say everything is great feels like a delusion, and my brain is smart enough to know I'm lying to it.
This raises an important question, and that distinction is paramount. This is absolutely not toxic positivity.
Because toxic positivity ignores the fire entirely.
Exactly. It demands that you stand in the burning building and pretend you aren't hot. But notice the very specific phrasing of the reframe the research suggests. This is incredibly difficult, but I can take one step at a time.
Oh, right. It validates the reality of the fire.
It honors your reality. Acknowledging that this is difficult is a deeply realistic, validating statement. It's simply pairing that realistic acknowledgement with manageable action.
The one step at a time part.
Right. Rather than pairing it with catastrophic defeat, you aren't ignoring the sheer scale of the mountain in front of you. You're simply forcing your vision to narrow down to the next immediate foothold instead of staring at the distant summit and freezing in despair.
And small changes in that inner dialogue, if you compound them over time, they create a massive shift in how you navigate the world.
You're actively rewriting the algorithm's default coding from panic, freeze, and shut down to assess reality and step forward.
That is huge. And as you work to rewrite that internal software, the text introduces the final and arguably most crucial piece of the puzzle, our external environment.
Specifically, human connection and how we are biologically designed to process stress.
The human pack animal element, finding your tribe.
Yes, biologically and neurologically, humans are simply not designed to process immense stress in isolation.
Because evolutionary biology dictates that being isolated from the tribe meant vulnerability and danger, right?
Precisely. Consequently, isolation acts as a massive compounding amplifier for anxiety and depression.
It creates a terrifying echo chamber effect. Like when you're alone with your catastrophic predictive text thoughts, they just bounce off the walls of your own skull.
Getting louder and louder.
Yeah, gaining momentum until they feel completely deafening.
Which is why the source emphasizes that sharing your internal state with someone you trust, or even simply existing in a space with positive people, acts as a biological pressure valve.
How does that work biologically?
We possess a mechanism called social co-regulation. When you interact with a calm, trusted person, your nervous system actually reads their vocal tone, their facial expressions, and their relaxed posture.
And it begins to mirror that safety.
Exactly.
You know, it is astonishing how much power just verbalizing a fear can have.
It really is.
When a fear is just rattling around in your head, it assumes the shape of a massive, unbeatable monster. But when you finally force it out of your mouth,
It loses its power.
yeah, you say it out loud to a friend sitting across from you over a cup of coffee, and the monster shrinks. You realize how much smaller it actually is when it's exposed to the light.
The research highlights this phenomenon beautifully. It knows that sometimes just one honest, vulnerable conversation can dramatically alter the trajectory of an entire day.
It doesn't mean the friend solves your complex problem for you, obviously.
No, not at all. It means the act of connection, the act of biologically proving to your nervous system that you are not facing the threat alone, fundamentally downregulates the emotional pressure you are carrying.
You don't have to carry the entire weight of your world on your own shoulders. It is a biological necessity to let someone help you hold it for a minute.
Exactly. And when we assemble all these individual pieces, the vagal nerve stimulation through breathing, the hydration, the daily movement, the cognitive reframing of our predictive thoughts, and the social co-regulation, we see the true overarching theme of this entire text.
The big takeaway for you, the listener, and I think it's a profoundly encouraging one, overcoming chronic anxiety and the weight of depression is not about executing a massive overnight overhaul of your entire personality.
Definitely not. You aren't supposed to wake up tomorrow as a completely different, perfectly enlightened human being who never feels stress.
Because holding on to that expectation is a trap that only breeds more anxiety.
Exactly. It's a setup for failure.
What this deep dive reveals is that mental resilience is actually forged in microadjustments. It's a 4-second prolonged exhale when an email scares you.
It's a 20-minute brisk walk to flush out cortisol instead of doom scrolling on the couch.
It's choosing to drink a glass of water instead of a third cup of adrenaline-mimicking coffee.
It's catching the thought, I can't,
Yeah.
and manually typing, this is hard, but I will take one step.
And it's sending a single, honest text message to a friend when every instinct is telling you to isolate and hide.
These are tiny, seemingly insignificant pivots. But when stacked consistently over time, those microactions slowly rebuild your structural confidence.
They repair your biological energy reserves.
And they cultivate genuine, resilient peace. The research leaves us with a powerful, empowering reminder. Your mind can learn calmness. Your physical habits can create real neurochemical change.
And every single small step forward matters immensely. Your mind can learn calmness. It is a skill you can actively practice and build, not just a genetic lottery you either won or lost at birth.
And it leads me to a final thought that really builds on everything we've analyzed today from the Arabic source text.
Oh, lay on me.
We started by reframing anxiety as a check engine light, right? A biological signal that something in your ecosystem needs attention.
Right. Not an indictment of your character, but an alert.
So if our minds can genuinely learn calmness through these physical and mental microhabits, if we can train our nervous systems to pause, breathe, and reset our baseline in the face of a threat,
Yeah.
could we eventually train our brains to use that initial spark of anxiety in a completely different way?
Wait, how do you mean?
Well, instead of that check engine light initiating a spiral of panic, avoidance, and total shutdown, Could we train ourselves to feel that sharp jolt of anxiety, recognize it as an influx of biological energy, and immediately harness it?
Oh, wow.
To use that heightened state of alertness, not as a reason to hide from the world, but as the exact, highly focused fuel we need to immediately start solving the problem at hand.
That is a phenomenal reframe. You aren't just surviving the anxiety and hoping it passes. You're actually capturing the heat from the engine and using it to drive the car forward.
You convert the panic into precision. And that is a powerful question worth carrying with you as you navigate your day.
It really is. The check engine light isn't there to tell you the journey is over. It's just there to make sure you have the power you need to keep going. We'll leave you with that to mull over. Until our next deep dive, take care of yourselves.